Hey, thanks.
I want to bring in conservative radio show host Steve Deace, who has not been shy in his criticism of Romney, both before and after the election as well. Steve, first of all, let me just get your take on the speech.
I thought the speech was actually very gracious, and I would agree with Pete. I didn't think that he was hinting at any kind of future presidential run, thank God. But it was very gracious and sort of a tip of the cap for a guy that has had a lot of time in the spotlight and wanted to thank people that had helped to put him in the position ultimately ended up in.
He was only given 15 minutes to speak today by CPAC organizers. This is how Politico put it, saying in part, quote, Mitt Romney gets B-list treatment at CPAC. The base moved on 4 months ago, and most Republican activists don't really care what their failed nominee thinks anymore. What did Romney add to the conference?
Well, I think what Romney adds to the conference, obviously, he is still the former standard bearer of the party, for better or for worse. So, I mean, that certainly comes with a certain cachet. I mean, I think for your liberal viewers, if Jimmy Carter shows up at a conference, he's certainly going to get his just desserts at a liberal conference and respect as a former standard bearer. And I think, though, it's also an opportunity, Craig, to frankly turn the page and move on to the next era of conservatism. And Mitt Romney represents the past. And really, the focus of this conference, more than him, has been the future. And that's where there's excitement about the Bobby Jindals, who will speak later this afternoon, the Marco Rubios and Rand Pauls that spoke back-to-back yesterday.
Let's talk about Rubio and Paul here, because some have made a lot of the contradictions that seem to be emerging from the first days at CPAC. You had Marco Rubio saying that conservatives don't really need new ideas, but then you had Rand Paul calling the GOP stale. You also had the first CPAC panel on immigration. Marco Rubio didn't mention immigration once in his speech. What do the contradictions say about the state of conservatism?
Well, I think it's maybe not a contradiction, respectfully, but a distinction. Ideas are not the same as solutions. And I think what I hear Rand Paul saying is we actually have to have solutions to people's problems, not just say, I'm for this and I'm for that. Well, what does that mean? Why will that make my life better? And what I hear Marco Rubio saying is a more generic statement, which is the principles, the ideas that we conservatives believe in are timeless truths that have been true on this planet from the very beginning of its existence. And so we don't need new ideas. What we need are solutions. And really, Marco Rubio and Rand Paul are sort of the yin and the yang, if you will, right now, of the next generation of conservatism. Rubio does a phenomenal job articulating the general vision, and Rand Paul does a great job articulating specifics on policy. I think if you were to run them as a ticket, if you told most of the conservatives here right now, that would be the ticket in some order in 2016, I think there would be a lot of excitement for that.
Do you think Rand Paul has the ability to reach out to mainstream GOPers?
Gosh, I hope not. I hope he has the ability to defeat them. They have been killing us. So I hope, and frankly, my excitement with Rand Paul, and as I've looked at the sort of liberty movement around the country that's emerging, I look at my home state where they took over the state Republican Party, for example. What I'm excited about them, even though there are some issue disagreements, but they actually want to defeat the party establishment. So I hope he doesn't have the ability to reach out to them. I frankly hope he has the ability to defeat them.
Steve, there are a lot of folks who have said that, you know, even if Rand Paul does manage to defeat the party establishment, that he is not the kind of candidate that can win a general election in this country, and that he would be emblematic of a problem that Republicans have had in the past by going out and getting the person who is, you know, severely conservative, if you will, who can win primaries but can't win in November.
Well, I would say we haven't had a severely conservative nominee since probably 1988. If you look at President John McCain, Mitt Romney, those were not conservatives. I mean, you heard Rick Perry say that about Mitt Romney last night. I think if you actually look at history, and you quoted Politico earlier, I actually wrote a column for Politico looking at 40 years of Republican presidential results. And there's two kinds of ways, or two things a Republican must do to win the presidency. And the number one thing is they've got to inspire the base the way Obama inspires his base. And then in the general election, they have to be able to articulate a populist right-of-center economic message and be strong on national defense. Well, let's look at the last election, Craig. Mitt Romney did not inspire his base. He lost 11 states to severely underfunded Rick Santorum. He lost the pivotal South Carolina primary to Newt Gingrich. He ended up winning a war of attrition. And then we got into the general election, and it was all about 47% and how many homes he owns, and he couldn't get beyond crony capitalism. So I think we need an empowering economic message. That is, I think, key in the general election, but we've got to come out of the primary with an inspired base, something we've not had in either of the last 2 election cycles.
Steve Deace, who started our interview with some compliments, if you will, for Governor Romney after his speech, and ended his spiel there with me the same way that Steve Deace usually ends his spiel when he's talking about Mitt Romney. Good Friday to you, sir. Thank you.